Hello, my name is Georganne Ford with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, and I'm here with one of our attorney mediators today, her name is Debbie Schneider. And Debbie, I believe you're going to speak to us about some of the perceptions we might have having to do with custody, and maybe I know it was a perception for me, and you definitely had some good points to make. So we're looking forward to hearing more about how child custody is really modifiable.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Georganne. It's good to be with you today. I was going to speak to a few points about child custody in Pennsylvania. We recognize that divorce is difficult for everyone, but for couples with minor children, it is doubly difficult. And I think everyone recognizes that. Certainly, those of us who do mediations at the Alpha Center recognize that, and we prioritize the parenting decisions that our couples need to make. So we are, when we start with a couple at Alpha Center, we ask them to sit down with a family child therapist and put together a parenting agreement. We call it a parenting agreement, but it's really a custody agreement. And, for many couples, they may have had some informal discussions about custody, but for many of them, they've not really spoken about it in depth. And it can be frankly, a very traumatic subject. And I think, again, we all recognize that. For most couples, they recognize that the divorce that they're facing is going to mean changes, big and small, for them. But they really want to minimize the impact that the divorce is going to have on their children.
Can I ask you a question, Debbie?
Of course.
Is this something that is like a one-time thing where people are able to, or is it a couple different meetings, or does it vary?
Well, it can vary, Georganne. I mean, we start most of our mediations with the expectation that they will plan to have 1 2-hour mediation with one of our family child therapists. All right.
Helpful.
Most couples do really well with a 2-hour meeting. It's very structured, and the child therapist helps the couple really focus on what needs to be done. So it's has a very practical component, and that is, where will the children spend their overnights? But it also has a great deal of philosophical underpinnings about how philosophically you want to look at your children's future as co-parents no longer married to each other. And that's really the critical piece that I think most couples have to make when they're facing this. We know how to be parents when we're in an intact family, but we may not know how to do this when we're in 2 households and we're divorced.
And does the therapist help with that, Debbie?
The therapist can help very, very much with that issue. And I think it focuses, again, on not only just right this minute and what needs to be done, but the future, right? How will we do this going forward, and how will we make it a success? One of the questions I often get from my clients when we're planning to the mediations and what's going to happen is they ask me if they're supposed to bring their children to the parenting mediation. And the answer is always a resounding no. We do not include children at all, ever. Now, I tell most of my clients, if they have teenagers, that they can often expect that their teenagers will likely express an opinion about custody and where they spend their overnights, because they're often outspoken about that. And I think any of us who have children recognize that. But also, we would just never include children in the parenting mediation. It's for parents to make those decisions. And another question I often am asked is, if we make decisions now and the decisions we make aren't working, can we change our minds? And the answer is yes, of course. It's built into the divorce code in Pennsylvania that child custody is always modifiable. So the set of decisions you make today and maybe will work for the next 6 months or a year, everyone recognizes that they may not work long term, and they probably won't. I mean, the needs of a 5-year-old are very different from the needs of a 15-year-old. So the child custody laws in Pennsylvania recognize that. So I always go out of my way to reassure my clients that you need to relook at custody. We encourage our clients to look at the decisions they've made at least every 6 months. Some of them decide to do it not that often. Some of them want to wait a year, and that's fine. That's really fine. But you need to look at it as something that you can always modify.
So, right. So I think our perception, I know mine was, it's like in stone when you make that agreement, which is why it can be so scary.
Right. And I think that contributes to them feeling scared and overwhelmed. And I don't ever want that to happen. I want them to feel reassured that they can revisit this as everyone's needs change.
That's really helpful. Very helpful.
And most of our clients, as I said, do really well with 1-2 hour mediation. Now, some clients want another mediation session, and that's perfectly fine. We can certainly schedule that. But many of our clients do really well. And again, part of what reassures them is that they can come back and modify it if it's not working. They can revisit it if it's not working.
Can you give some examples of what some of those modifications might look like?
Well, those modifications can be very minor, right? So one of the things that couples are often doing is they're setting, as I said, setting a schedule, setting an overnight schedule.
Right.
So they may say, okay, we'll share custody and the children will be moving from one household to the other at a certain time on a Wednesday or a Sunday or a Saturday, and establish a time for that to happen. But then sometimes when daylight savings times ends and suddenly the daylight hours are different, they want to make a change. They want to make it 2 hours earlier or 2 hours later. Well, that's a really minor change to make, right? And then then the changes can be pretty major. They can be a change in substantial time with either parent. Or if the children are teenagers, we might make changes based on what their needs are, what their extracurricular activities might be. I mean, many teenagers are busy doing lots of sports activities. They might have an after-school job or a job on Saturday. So all of these things need to be addressed and accommodated within a custody schedule.
I was just thinking, I guess if a parent would move away, one of them,
For sure.
that would be
Relocation is always a big issue. And frankly, relocation is a whole nother subject for another video.
Good.
Because it comes up all the time. Relocation is a big issue.
Is that right?
Yes.
But that would be a reason for someone to modify the.
Right. That would, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And relocation is used to be a kind of just a given. If there was a primary custodial parent and the other parent had partial physical custody, the perception was that primary parent could just simply decide, well, I'm going to move and that decision is up to me and you don't have any say in that. Well, the laws have changed in Pennsylvania and relocation is
Does
now.
sound like an interesting one, another one.
Yes,
video.
exactly.
These videos are just little snippets of really helpful information that's so educational for all of us.
I hope so. Again, the custody piece is such a big deal, and we all recognize that, and we want our clients to understand that we understand how traumatic it can be for everyone in the family. Many of our clients sit down with their parenting mediator at the parenting mediation, and some of them haven't even told their children yet that this is what they're planning to do. So they may want some very practical advice about how to tell their children.
And the parenting mediator, is that part of the actual program at the Alpha Center?
It is, yes. We encourage, almost universally, we would encourage a couple with minor children to have a parenting mediation. So we would suggest that very strongly. We know it puts the couple in the very best track for success. For one thing, they will do much better. They will have a more positive outcome if they look at what their children need.
Right.
They want to structure custody.
Well, Debbie, thanks so much for taking time to come and talk to us today and share this information. And
Georganne.
I've seen some of the other ones that they're always helpful. And
Good.
if anyone out there, you have questions for the Alpha Center, or you would like to schedule a complimentary consultation, please reach out to us at 1-800-310-9085. And again, thanks for being our guest.